In this video I'm going to show you all you need to know about the Fender Vintera 50s precision bass. Hi guys, I'm Tyler, thank you for tuning back into the channel. Today's video is in collaboration with guitar centre Langley here in the UK. So if you like what you see in this video and you want to check this very bass out, you can do. This is from their stock. So head over to the links in the description to find the link to this bass and their website in general. Always have a load of Fender stock there, so if you're after something Fender, go and find it there. So as I said in the introduction in this video, I'm running through all you need to know about the Vintera 50s precision bass from Fender. And right off the bat, I'm going to say I really like this bass, and I hope throughout this video you can see exactly why. In this video I'm going to run you through the specs of the bass, then I'm going to do a solo tone demo, and then put the bass back to back with some drums so you can hear the different tones as you switch from full tone, 50% tone and 0% tone with a variety of styles of playing. Don't forget, if you like what you see in this video, hit that like button and hit that subscribe button too. So this bass is one of the Vintera models, made in Mexico. The Vintera series are vintage style instruments built for the modern day at a pretty reasonable price point. This is a 50s style instrument, so what we're getting is specs that are reminiscent of a 50s style instrument. It's vintage specs, so you're going to have the usual vintage things like a bigger neck and slightly different choices in the hardware. So let's run through those now. So running through the specs, we have an ash body and a maple neck with a maple fingerboard. We have the Fender 50s split precision bass pickup. Doesn't state what the material is online, so I'm not sure. I'd imagine it's an Alnico pickup of some kind. We also have a volume and tone setup as we're used to seeing on P basses throughout the years. The bridge is just a traditional Fender bent metal bridge. Keeps it simple and they always work. It's exactly the same type of bridge as I have on my custom shop, which is behind me. It features vintage frets, which are fairly small to my eyes and feel great, and a synthetic bone nut. One of the typically vintage features is reverse tuners, and this bass features those, so it actually tunes backwards to how most modern basses tune, but tunes well, stays in tune well. Good set of tuners on this bass. Some of the aesthetic features that are worth talking about are the gold anodized pickguard, which is a traditional 50s feature. We have a gloss polyurethane finish, which is light enough that you can see through to the ash, which I think is a great look. And we have also a gloss urethane finished neck as well. In terms of that neck profile, this is a vintage C shape. It's thinner down at the bottom of the neck, so around the 1st to the 5th fret is fairly thin. As you come up the neck, it thickens out nicely, which I think is a classic P-bass feel, and I really enjoy this feel. I used to own a classic 50s Fender, which has got a lot of views on my channel, so check that out if you want to compare the old version effectively to this one. And this still feels just as comfortable as that did. One thing I would say is that the neck finish on this feels a little bit lighter and it's less prone to stickiness. I felt like I got quite stuck on my 50s classic, particularly if it was in a cold temperature or whatever. Whereas this gloss finish on the neck feels just right, not too sticky, but comfortable enough to feel like it's going to be robust. The other thing to mention about the neck is that this does feature a 1 3/4 inch nut, so it's a traditional P-bass nut width, which is wider than most Fender basses and most of the P-basses that are built nowadays. But I find that really comfortable and I really enjoy that feel on a P-bass. In terms of weight, this bass is just under 4 kilograms, which I think is typical and what you can expect from most Fenders built in the modern era. So those are the specs of the bass. Now I'm just going to run you through some solo tones. So this is the bass with the volume all the way up and the tone all the way up. This is the tone on 50%. And then this is the tone rolled all the way off. And So now you've heard the bass solo, I'm just going to run through to the full tone demo with all these samples back to back. Don't forget to let me know in the comments below which is your favourite setting. So now you've heard the tones you can get from this bass, I'm just going to give you my conclusions and recommend who this bass would be best suited to. Don't forget to leave your favourite setting in the comments below. Overall, I am a big fan of the Fender Vintera range. As I said earlier, I owned a classic 50s bass, and I do think that the Vintera series, as much as they look like they are a similar type of instrument and a similar build to those original classic 50s, I do feel they are a little bit of a step up. This particular bass feels a lot more resonant than my classic 50s did, and that was even after doing quite a lot of work. That classic 50s has had a load of comments on YouTube and really positive feedback, and I think this bass outdoes that, so it can only get better effectively. This is definitely a vintage style instrument, and I think the tones replicate that. But I also think there's a slight difference in the P bass tone from the ash body and the maple neck to what we might expect. I think there's a lot more punch in the real bottom end and a little bit less of that mid-range sound that we're used to with a P bass. So this does have a P bass profile in its tone in general, but it does feel a little bit different, and I quite enjoy that difference. I enjoyed the sound of it with a pick, I enjoyed the sound of it played with slap style, and the fingerstyle is just something a bit different. If you're looking for that traditional Motown type sound, I don't think this bass really does that in the same way that a rosewood fingerboarded P bass with a maple neck and an auto body will do. It's just not quite the same low mid punch, but it does have a cool unique sound, and to be honest, I'm quite tempted to own both an ash and an auto body P bass in the way that they kind of made me play in a different way. I think in many ways the Vintera bass with the ash body is much more responsive immediately and doesn't bloom as much, and I felt like that made me want to play more notes on this bass than I would on my custom shop. where I feel like the real joy of that is you play a note and it blooms a lot more, and I think that's a traditional characteristic of an older bodied bass. As I've just alluded to, I was really impressed with the slap tones on this bass, and I enjoyed the pick tones too. I just felt the high mid content really helped it cut through and felt a lot more alive than some P basses when you slap them. I think the electronics package in this bass is very solid and produces a really good tone, and it's not something that I would be looking to replace or change immediately. I think it just sounds really great on its own, and I would happily pick this up and gig with it, no problem. One feature I would have liked to see on this bass would be a lacquer finish, but really once you step up to the American Original series, that's what you're getting from a bass like this. So I can't really complain, and I do think that despite the fact that it has a poly finish, it is plenty resonant and vibrant enough. Overall, if you're looking for a high quality P bass but don't want to stretch to something like the Professional or American Original series, I'd say this really does replace what was the American Standard range, but with that vintage flavour. If you want a modern feeling neck and a slightly more modern sound, I would suggest you don't go for this bass. But if you want to replicate those original 50s P bass tones within a reasonable amount of money and without having to worry about the upkeep that you have on a vintage instrument and the worries that come with that and taking it out and gigging, I would no doubt suggest that you check out this bass. For me, when it comes to a Fender, it's all about that vintage tone and feel, and this is one of the first basses that I've played doing these reviews in a very long time that just felt immediately comfortable. It's a vintage feeling bass, it's definitely got a bigger neck and it has a vintage tone profile, but that's really what I'm looking for when I'm looking for a Fender P bass and Fender basses in general. I think the build quality is very good. There's nothing that I could really complain about. Maybe the setting of the frets, they could be a little bit more precisely done into the fretboard, but in terms of the finish on the edge of the neck and everything, that's perfect. And the rest of the build is impeccable, absolutely impeccable. The other thing I'd mention is that the action was very low. It's actually too low for me for a P bass. I like to be able to dig in a bit and kind of have a bit more of an upright bass feel on my P basses, but incredibly comfortable low action. This is a well set up Mexican instrument that is really challenging those old Fender American Standard levels of quality. I wouldn't recommend this bass to anyone who's after modern bright tones or a modern Fender feel, but anyone who loves vintage Fender tones, vintage Fender feel, and just wants a vintage Fender style instrument that you don't have to worry about so much on gigs, don't have to worry about in terms of its value and resale and all those kind of things, this is a great bass to be looking at, and I would highly recommend you go and check it out. I was quite surprised, but I did think this was a decent step up from the classic 50s bass that I used to own. So that's my overall all you need to know demo and review of the Fender Vintera 50s bass. I really enjoyed doing this video. Don't forget to head over to my Instagram, which will be linked below right now, to check out all the other musical things that I do and keep up to date with all the basses that I come across day to day. Don't forget to head over to the Guitar Centre Langley website. I'll leave the link to that in the description below, and also a link to this very bass so you can purchase this for yourself. Again, this is a really great bass, and I wouldn't be saying this. Those of you who have seen my reviews before know I can be very honest about how I feel about a bass, and this is impeccable and feels great, so definitely check this one out. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and consider subscribing as well. But that's it for this demo. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you around soon.